Hi everyone, today I wanted to talk about some of the creepier things in Kingdom Hearts 1. Now you may think, first Kingdom Hearts game isn't creepy, it's not scary, it's, magical Disney game. It's probably the most magical, most silly, most carefree game of the entire series, which is true, but it also is, in my opinion, the most creepy game in the series. There's a lot of stuff it's not scary or anything, it's obviously not a horror game. But when you think about it a bit more, it just becomes a little bit more spooky. So today I'm going to talk about 10 of those things and some honorable mentions that I found just a little bit weird to think about. So the first thing I want to mention happens in Traverse Town, specifically in the hotel area. Now, when you examine the paintings on either side of the lobby in the hotel, a voice calls out from, I guess, the front desk area. Now, the weird thing about this is that it happens whichever way you look at the painting. So if you look at the one close to the desk and then you go all the way to the other end and then look at the one at the far side, then the voice calls out from all the way over at the other side of the hotel lobby saying paintings are great. A bit strange because is he shouting down at you? Well, what's going on? That's a bit weird. Or you can do it the other way around, which is also kind of creepy because you can look at the far side one, go to the one next to the desk, and then he says it right next to you as if he's whispering it to you. So that's already kind of weird. The other weird thing is, who is that? Like, this is just a place full of Heartless. There's just someone behind the desk who says paintings are great to you, and it gives you a clue to go and hit the clock to get some rewards. And then the fact the curtain like moves slightly, like the curtain just slightly draws but you don't see them, that's pretty freaky. I've always found that a bit weird. There's just this one person in the hotel full of Heartless, and it's just one person who's just still there. Kind of strange. And then the final thing about this, which I find quite interesting, is that it's not a speech bubble, it's a thought bubble. Yet we can see it. We know what they're thinking. Why is it a thought bubble? It seems like he's saying it. I'm not quite sure why that is, but it's strange nonetheless. And the only other thing he ever says to you, I say he, it could be a she, we don't know, but the only other thing they say to you is no vacancy, which you would expect a hotel desk person to say. But the painting's a great thing. It's just slightly creepy, not scary or anything, but it's just a little bit strange. Staying in Traverse Town now, and there's one that's maybe not the most serious one ever, but there's a guy who dies in Traverse Town. He gets his heart taken by the Heartless. Then later on you see the same model, the same guy, taking over the accessory shop from Sid. Now, okay, they're using the same model, whatever, it's, they don't want to make too many models. But the weird thing about it is that he's also directly outside the accessory shop. Well, not directly, but he's across the plaza in the first district. And then if you talk to him, he says something like, oh, what, you've seen me before? Perhaps you're thinking of someone else. And I'm like, dude, you're literally right in that shop over there.
Strike that. Reverse it.
How can you be in two places at once? And I saw you lose your heart earlier, so that's a bit strange. Now, I think we can all probably guess that line is in there just as a kind of a joke by the developers to say, yeah, we reused the model. You've seen me before, haha, very funny. But when you think about it in universe, Sora is seeing the same guy twice, that he's already seen lose his heart earlier. That's kind of creepy. This guy's got something weird going on when you think about it in canon. And there's also the fact that he's also in Agrabah, kind of. He's got like a recolored model in Agrabah for one of those 3 NPCs that only appear in a very short period of time in Agrabah. I did a short video demonstrating that. When you think about it, and you think about what Sora's seen, you think, that's kind of strange. That's slightly disturbing. This, let's be honest, slightly freaky looking character model is appearing multiple times throughout the game. Is this the Master of Masters? Okay, it's not, but, it's just something kind of fun to think about. Next, there's the Phantom boss fight. Probably the most creepy boss fight in the game. He's got this, for a start, his appearance, okay, the ghost-like figure, the way he's just a cloak, like billowing in the wind, the way he sort of sidles up to you as you fly to the clock tower, and just looks at you. I also think, by the way, that his original colours were actually kind of more creepy. The sort of bright white now makes it a little bit less spooky to me, but he's still creepy. He's still a creepy boss. And then, of course, think about his mechanics. The fact that he can permanently kill the party members and they don't resurrect. And once they're done with, he's going to use the same mechanic of turning the clock hands to kill you if you're not fast enough. that's kind of scary. And then there's the whole fact that to get to him, you have to talk to Tinkerbell, and she looks very urgent that something's happening. You're like, okay, what's going on? And if you fought the Kurt Zisa already in Agrabah and you talk to the flying carpet, you think, last time I did this, there was a boss coming up. Now you've got this sense of, okay, there's a hard boss coming up. Okay, I need to prepare. This is going to be interesting. First time you play it, definitely quite scary. In End of the World, the last world in the game that you visit, there's a place called Volcanic Crater. Now to begin with, this is just the area underneath Chernobog's boss fight. Chernobog himself, by the way, is a little bit creepy too. He's basically the devil. But what I want to talk about is when you go through the little portal kind of thing to these 3 corridors. It's still called Volcanic Crater, but that doesn't really live up to what these corridors are. You can see all this destroyed scenery and nature. It's all in ruins, and you can tell, okay, these are remnants of destroyed worlds. These are remnants of places the Heartless have devoured and almost completely gone. This is all that's left of them. It's quite disturbing to see such grand places reduced to mere corridors. And what's weirder is the fact that the rooms are obviously representing destroyed remains of Disney worlds. So in this case they're Sleeping Beauty, Snow White and Cinderella's worlds. And I think the coolest thing here, the most interesting detail and also very disturbing, is there's this like splodge on the wall. There's actually 2 of them, but we'll just say there's 1 for the sake of this video. And it's got a faint castle shape. Now I've seen this being referred to as Beast Castle, but it's not. It actually matches up completely with King Stefan's castle from Sleeping Beauty. If I show you this still image, and then I flip it and tilt it, you can see this is the same shape, just it's been slightly like worn down and like they've rubbed out bits of it, but yeah, it's obviously King Stefan's castle. And it's just strange to think such a huge and grand and great castle has been reduced to just a splodge on the wall. That's all you can see. That's all that's left of this world. Very freaky indeed. On the topic of worlds being destroyed by the Heartless, one thing I want to mention is the empty rooms and the empty worlds in general in Kingdom Hearts 1. So people tease the old Kingdom Hearts games for having very empty rooms and not many NPCs in them. But I think the first game is where it works most to its advantage. There's a real sense of dread and worry from the emptiness in the first game. You're knowing that people have either died or they're just hiding from the swarms of Heartless that are just destroying the worlds one by one. It feels like also that the worlds that you visit are on the brink of annihilation. Hollow Bastion is extremely good at this. It's this oppressive and huge castle being completely taken over by the Heartless, you know. It's not what it once was. It makes you feel insignificant, and you look around in Hollow Bastion and all you see is just like mist and the water, I guess. When you look at it in Kingdom Hearts 2 and Both I Sleep, you see like, okay, there's like mountains and stuff. And here it's just the castle and the rising falls. It just feels like this world is on the edge of being destroyed, and it's the same for the Disney worlds, you know. They're so empty. You go to somewhere like, for example, Agrabah, a huge bustling city. Where is everybody? Sure, they're not there because of constraints of the time period this game's made in, but lore-wise, you think, wow, there's Heartless everywhere. There's more Heartless in the first game than in any other game. So people are probably hiding, nobody's out and about, and those NPCs that come out after Jafar's defeat show that people do exist, but they're too scared to come out. And where are the guards? You know, it's stuff like that that make you think, okay, I'm feeling kind of alone here. And it's that sort of feeling of alone and insignificant, kind of existential dread. I really like that sort of terror and horror when it's used. And while this isn't horrifying or anything, here it still puts you on edge a little bit. And a lot of old games, in fact, have this feeling because of the fact that they couldn't use many NPCs. Kingdom Hearts 1 is no exception. The feeling maybe isn't as powerful as in some other old games, but it's certainly there. I briefly want to talk about Halloween Town, specifically OOGIE'S Manor area. Now, Halloween Town's creepiness is more just, yeah, it's like the film, you know, it's not actually scary or anything, it's just more of kind of a charm to it, you know. But I think there's something about OOGIE'S Manor, both before and after it gets destroyed. Well, for a start, it's got a room called Torture Chamber. That's kind of weird, you know, you wouldn't expect Kingdom Hearts to have a room called Torture Chamber in it. And you know how like messed up OOGIE is himself. He's, you know, he does some messed up stuff. Like, he's very willing to just kill people on a roll of a dice. And I think Giant Oogie's kind of creepy too, and how he moves about and attacks you. And just the cutscene when he turns giant as well. I always find that kind of creepy. And finally, when Oogie's mana's gone, you're left with this big empty space. Similar to the last point, there's a thing about vastness and feeling insignificant that's quite freaky to me. At the end of the game, you get to see the Destiny Islands again before the boss fight with Ansem. And that seems cheerful at first, but then you remember that the music of End of the World is still playing, Destiny's still playing, which is a very sinister track. In fact, it was actually known as a kind of cursed track for the first game. This is in the Ultimania, but because whenever they used it, or a lot of time they used it, stuff like the power in the building would go out, or the lights would go out. So not only is it a track about darkness, but it's a cursed track too. But then the fact that you see the island get torn up, and you think, okay, so this is what happened to Destiny Islands basically. It got absolutely shredded, wrecked. It doesn't look like home anymore. It's got this horrible purple stuff everywhere. And you think about it a bit deeper. You think about, well, every world that was destroyed in the first game and then restored afterwards. Before it was on the brink of being destroyed, this is probably the sort of stuff that happened. The land got torn up. And think about if you're a person. If you're a person on those worlds and you're just seeing this absolute apocalypse happen, heartless everywhere, people dying, losing their hearts, it's pretty nasty to think about. The other Disney aspect on this list that I decided to include was URSULA'S LAIR area of Atlantica. Now, the rocky ocean tunnels are somewhat unsettling because being in a confined space underwater is a little bit scary, but they're not too bad. But it's when you see the entrance to URSULA'S lair that it gets creepier. You've got this weird giant skeleton of a fish just kind of like staring at you. And then more importantly to me is the vast deep ocean beyond. The deep ocean is one of the coolest and most disturbing places on our planet. So when you see it in games and the like, that's when it really turns up the unsettling factor. Even if we barely see it in this game, it's still quite creepy to me, but it gets worse. This is the bit that's actually creepy about this place. And it's all the people that URSULA'S helped that you have to swim past, so all the mermen and mermaids that are transformed into polyps. Oh, it's very disturbing. You know, Ursula, she just pretends to help people. She scams them, basically. Turns them into little pets and puts them in her garden. It's literally called Ursula's Garden, not in-game, but that's how it's called. And very creepy. She's a very sinister villain. Ansem, when he's just a wandering heart and he hasn't possessed Riku yet, he's in this freaky looking brown sack, which doesn't sound scary, but it's the fact that he's not quite human. He's got this weird like bend at the legs, kind of looking like an organization coat, but more creepy because it's this sort of hunched, disheveled figure. You think that shouldn't be freaky, but it kind of is, especially when you match it with his voice. When he's possessed, Riku is quite, you know, a confident and lecturing voice, but when he's in this robe form, he's got this deadpan kind of just not going high pitched or low pitched. He's just speaking at one sort of volume. Oh, it's very strange. And when he possesses Riku as well, and how the camera sort of pans up so you don't see the final stage of him possessing him, definitely done to make you feel like it's a kind of a horror thing. It's actually one of the creepiest parts of the game. Him just appearing in Destiny Islands to talk to Sora and give him some cryptic messages, and then he just disappears and it goes back to the normal Destiny Islands music, and you're like, what just happened the first time you played the game? It's just amazing to see that this is the thing that's bringing about so much destruction. And then you learn about him late in the later games, that he's a Heartless himself, and of course that he's been just sitting around Destiny Islands for a long time after he sent his younger self on the journey to start all of this series. And if we briefly mention that cutscene in Dream Drop Distance, the fact that Sora sort of looks forward and then the brown robe is just there looking over you, every time they use Ansem like this in a cutscene, they always try and make it freaky, and I do appreciate that. The last of the 10 main creepy things in the game I want to talk about is the world terminus in End of the World. So for a start, you have the empty sort of Disney rooms with just Heartless in them. They're already empty as they were, but some of them, like Olympus for example, is at night time instead, which is quite creepy. and just stuff like the third district, and you have the end of the world music instead of the normal sort of happy sounding traverse time music. It feels unsettling even when it's calm, and that wasn't the case with the Disney worlds. It was only in certain areas where they didn't feel very safe. Even with the Heartless gone, here you've still got the freaky music, you've still got the fact it's empty and sometimes it's night, for example. Yeah, kind of scary, but the worst part about this is the one room you go to in Hollow Bastion. Since you didn't actually go to it in Hollow Bastion, the world itself, it's new. It's got this giant Heartless logo and just darkness behind. That's quite creepy. And then there's these swirly dark portals everywhere. And then you have the machine with the spooky cryptic message on it. You've got these pods with human outlines, which is quite disturbing when you think about. At the time, of course, in the game, it's Ansem who did this, but when you find out it's actually Apprentice Xehanort who did it. But you think about, okay, people were in these pods being experimented on, and maybe even killed just to see what the heart was doing. That's very disturbing. And of course, now we've learned some new information about this device in Union Cross. We've learned that it's called the Ark, and that it may have been used to transport people back to our time. People in the past, like Maleficent. I don't think that's been fully explained that in the story, but yeah, that's kind of weird too when it gives it more meaning. And I'm gonna give some spoilers here for the newest Kingdom Hearts trailer, but we're about to see more of this machine and Apprentice Xehanort, and it seems like he put Kairi in there. I did some tests on her, which is just gonna make it even more creepy whenever you go back and look at this machine in the first game. So that's the main 10 I want to talk about. Now for some honourable mentions. These are things that are kind of slightly creepy but not that bad. And also just, I couldn't really fill out an entire section for them. So you have the Traverse Town bell. The fact that kind of rings from far away and you hear it when you're with Sid. And he's like, oh yeah, go check it out, but deliver that book. And then you have to go ring it yourself to summon the boss. Something a bit unsettling about that. Then you have the second district of Traverse Town itself and the Sniper Wild in the final mix version, just patrolling around. And before you really know how to deal with it, you're like, okay, I know this thing will just kill me if I don't escape, so I've got to try and sneak around. That's quite creepy. Then you have Wonderland. There's something just disturbing about Wonderland, you know, even in, of course, the original film and in the books. Wonderland's just a weird place. The Cheshire Cat with his grin, he doesn't look creepy in his Kingdom Hearts model, but the whole thing is just strange. So there's that. And then finally there's Xemnas, the boss fight against him in Final Mix, or Unknown as he's called at that time. He's kind of similar to Ansem in his robed form. Not so much in shape, but it's the way he sort of just floats. He has this floating animation that Marluxia also has in Chain of Memories at the start. That animation's just, I don't know, it's so like not quite human and just creepy about it. And he's given cryptic messages and everything, and of course it's a tough boss fight until you just leaf brace your way through it. But regardless, those are just some extra things I wanted to mention. Kingdom Hearts 1 as a whole, like I said, it's not a scary game, of course, it's not a horror game. But of all the Kingdom Hearts games, it has the most dark and just sinister sort of aspects to it when you think about it a bit more. When you stop listening to the cheerful Disney music and think, ah, this is weird, this is creepy. If there's any other creepy things you can think of from the first game, or even any of the other games, feel free to comment them, because I may make more videos for the other games too. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.